Hello, hello. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. That means it's time for a new technique. And today we are going to be doing some embossing in a new way, some heat embossing. We're calling this textured embossing. And so we're going to be using, again, the same set we used yesterday, the Detailed Succulent stamp set. I love this stamp set. We're going to be using some Versamark. It's kind of like sticky ink, that's what I call it. So it's a watermark ink pad, so there's no real color to it, but it's sticky, which helps our embossing powder to stick to it. So our embossing powder comes in these 3-pack sets. So there is silver, gold, and copper in one pack. And there's another pack that has white, black, and clear. So we're going to be using white today. And then we're going to be using our heat tool. So this is our Stampin' Up! Heat tool. It's got 2 settings, a low and a high. I love it because it doesn't get too hot. Sometimes if you use something that is, like a hair dryer or something like that, it might be too hot and burn through our paper. So we don't want that, right? So I love our Stampin' Up! Heat tool. So we will be using that as well. Hey, Christina, good morning. Hey, Lizzie. This is a fun technique. So textured embossing is what we're gonna do today. So it's a little bit different than heat embossing. So let's get started. Let me move some of this out of the way. And so with our Detailed Succulent stamp set, so this is a distinctive stamp set, and that's what you want for this technique. But you want to make sure you use the detailed images, not the solid images. And let me show you why. So our solid images, if you emboss them, are going to look like just a blurb, like a little solid blurb, right? And so you want to make sure for any embossing really, but especially for the technique we're going to do today, that you want to use the more detailed image of your embossing. So let me show you what we're going to do. I've got some Petunia Pop paper here, some fun Petunia Pop. That's one of our new in colors, and it's such a pretty, it's a bright, pretty, fun color. I've got my Versamark ink here, so that's our sticky ink that we're going to use. And before we stamp or emboss or anything, I want to use my embossing buddy. So this comes in our embossing toolkit, and it's nothing more than a static tool that helps your powder not to just stick to everywhere. So if we were to do this technique and not use our embossing buddy, we might have lots of little powder all over. So I've got 2 images here. 2 of those detailed images. So we're just going to ink them up onto our Versamark, that sticky ink. And you can see it's just a light image. You get close, there you go. It's just a light image at first. But this sticky ink is great because it is meant to stay wet a bit longer than like a normal ink, right? So I am just stamping these images all over here. Let's do a couple more because we just want to fill this in. So you can see I've just got those all over my paper here. Let me move that out of the way. And I'm going to bring in, I put my powder in just a little container from the Container Store, along with these cute little scoops. Aren't they just darling? They're just little and cute. So now I'm just gonna put my powder, my embossing powder, right over those images. I'm just gonna tap the side a bit just to get off any excess. So all I'm doing is putting some powder on those images that I stamped. So this, if you have not tried embossing, regular embossing, which is what I'm doing first, then you have got to try this because this is a technique that totally wowed me when I was first watching YouTube videos of stamping. That was one of probably the second video that I watched was about embossing, and I was just totally sold. So you can see, let me get super close. that we've just got powder on our sticky ink right now. Then we're gonna take our heat tool, and we've got low and high. I'm gonna turn it on high for this. It's gonna get a little noisy, kind of like a hairdryer sound. But I'm just gonna do this super close to the camera because I want you to see the change when we start this. So there you go. Now watch that powder as it transforms. So we're just gonna heat it up. And there you go. You'll start to see that it's heating that up. It's causing a reaction so that the powder melts and becomes a beautiful raised image. So we're just gonna do this all along all of those that we stamped. You can see it gets brighter. The details really come out in your image. There we go. So that is basic embossing right there. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna texture this, because when you add some more embossing powder to an image, it's gonna give even more texture. So I'm gonna put this up. This is just my foam mat. I like to rest my heat tool on it. And I'm gonna bring in my powder here. So I just have everything ready to go. So we are going to take our gun, our heat tool here, and we're gonna heat it up again. I'm gonna take my little scoop. I'm just gonna get a little powder on the end here. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add more powder. So we're gonna get it a little bit thicker in kind of the middle of our flowers here. So let me heat this up. We're gonna remelt that powder. We're gonna add a little bit more powder, and then we're gonna remelt it again. And we're gonna do that a few times until we get that center real texturized. So we're just heat it up. It's gonna start to melt again. I'm gonna scoop up a tiny bit of powder. You can also use your fingers for this if you want to just sprinkle a bit on there. And we're gonna heat that up. It's gonna melt again. We're gonna add a little bit more. We're gonna heat that up. It's gonna melt. We're gonna add a little more. Anywhere that we want to add a little texture. So I like to do it in the centers here of the flowers. Add a little powder. Add a little heat. Melt that up. Add a little heat. Add a little powder. Melt that up. And I don't know if you can see, but it's getting extra shiny in those areas, right? Because it's a bit thicker and it adds a little bit more texture. So it's raising it up a bit. So we're gonna do that again on the next one here. And then I'm gonna show you some finished cards. Add a little more, melt that up. Add a little more, melt that up. Perfect. Okay, so let me get this close so you can see. Let me scoop that off of my fingers here. That little extra bit. But you can see what we did is we just added to the middle there. So we've got this extra raised center of our flowers. So it really gives it that extra pop in there. It gives us more texture. So the image, you know, is really pop. You can use different colors as well. You could do the same technique with silver or gold or anything. I love the white on the different colors because it just, you know, adds that and then some, right? So let me show you a couple of finished cards here. So using that same technique that we just did, I use those same flowers, and you can see instead of just being kind of flat embossed, they've got that raised center, and it just gives more texture, right? A little bit more interest to the card, changes the image a tiny bit, right? I added some of those stones, some of those pretty purple sequins from our celebration, and just popped that up. So it's a really simple, because all we did was some simple stamping and add a bit of texture to the centers there. You can do it on the little ones as well, but mostly I did it on those bigger images. So that is your Technique Tuesday. Remember, you want to use a detailed image because you don't want a big solid emboss, or maybe you do because it is kind of pretty, right? But you just don't see a lot of the detail when you're using the solid images versus our more detailed images. And the distinctive stamps, that just means it shows a lot to the shadows. So our detailed succulents is what they would call a distinctive stamp. The distinctive ones worked the best for this technique because you can really get in on those areas and just add that extra bunch of texture. So happy Technique Tuesday. If you haven't tried some embossing or some textured embossing, I can't wait to see your cards. You'll have to post them in the comments below or send me an email with your comments, because I love seeing your projects and what you create each week. So this is just a fun, quick technique for Technique Tuesday. If you've missed any of ours and want to see some past techniques, you can find them on my YouTube. There's a playlist for Technique Tuesday. You can also find them on my blog at stampinqueenbee.com. Have a great day, everyone. Happy embossing, and I'll talk to you soon.